What's up, everybody? This episode of Mark Bell's Power Project podcast is brought to you by Piedmontese Beef.
Yeah, World Carnivore Month is over, and I think I'm totally done with meat.
No, you're not.
I'm going vegan.
You're fibbing.
No.
That's fake news.
Yes, I am actually lying. There's no reason. I'm going to put all type... Pause. I'm going to eat... Oh. There's no way of saying that I want to eat all types of Piedmontese
especially when
beef.
Dudes are in the room.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of children.
Yeah. Well, they have a lot of great cuts of meat that have, a lot of protein. Some have lower fat, some have higher fat. You really can't lose with the options, and they all taste great. So eat all the meat you want, gentlemen.
Yeah, and I'll one-up you.
Ladies.
Yeah, well, see, here we go. Go ahead and check out the Piedmontese Hot Dogs, because those things are incredible. All right.
Hey, yo!
All right, get the Piedmontese all beef hot dogs, cut them up like you're 4 or 5 years old trying to eat some hot dogs, and then enjoy them that way. I promise you, they taste incredible. They're somehow they're super low in fat, super high in protein. Doesn't make any sense. All I can say is you need to go try these things out right now. Head over to Piedmontese.com. That's Piedmontese.com. At checkout, enter promo code Power Project for 25% off your order. And if your order is $99 or more, you get free 2-day shipping.
Tupac, if you listen to this, I got your back, bro. I think we got to play 50 Cent, right? Like every time we go to Clubhouse, I think we got to...
In the club?
Yeah. I'm into having sex. I ain't into making love, right?
Yeah. So come give me a hug if you're into.
That's one of the sickest songs ever. The music in that, the beat on that is fucking crazy. I like that a lot. And 50 Cent was awesome. I like some of these guys now that rap and they kind of sound like they're half asleep. That's a talent.
It's called mumble rap.
Yeah.
Which is fucking stupid.
It's like, dude, are you awake, bro? How high are you exactly?
All right, let me get this one going. I want to get some credit for it too.
Street cred?
Yeah. It's gonna echo.
Oh. Will people be accredited for this?
Do schools have like federations, like to where like these credits work here, but they might not work over there? In the SPF region.
It's interesting. Like school credit is an interesting thing. Like my son, the school that he's going to, they don't have that. They don't use that. They just think that's bullshit. And I think it's bullshit too, because what's it for? Mm-hmm. Do you get accredited? Accredited for what? What do you want credit for?
I don't know.
You're either smart or you're dumb. You're being accredited doesn't really mean anything necessarily. Are we on Clubhouse?
We're on Clubhouse.
No.
Yep.
How do you know? I can't even see it. So did it happen? Is it there?
That was the best conversation we've ever had about the you not actually seeing Clubhouse ever, but being an awesome authority on it already.
Right. Everyone can see me, right now? This is how it works. Am I on video?
I mean, ish. In post, you'll be in video, but as of right now, no, nobody can.
But Clubhouse does not have a visual component to it.
Correct. And
ain't that some bullshit? Why not? Why don't they add that in?
Oh, hey, we got Chris Bell.
No.
Hey!
Oh, hey!
What's going on, kids?
Hey, Boar. I was walking with your dad today.
How dare you?
I know. What I noticed about him is he's actually not that tall.
He's actually shorter than I am, which is really, really crazy.
And wasn't his
never feel tall?
And wasn't his dad? And wasn't his dad shorter than him? Right?
Maybe kind of the same as me and him.
Yeah, Grandpa Bell, Sheldon Bell, the original Sheldon Bell. He was real short.
Probably about 5'3".
And then Marie Bell, our grandma, she wasn't even 5 feet tall, was she?
I think she was about 4'11".
That's wild. Why is everybody so fucking short? These short Italians.
I don't know, but it's still you and Mad Dog screwed me.
Yeah, we fucked you over. We stole your height. And then I punched you over the bench in the backyard. We were boxing.
Yeah, the kids always ask me about that.
That was amazing. My brother, we were boxing, and I was starting to learn, some pretty good stuff with boxing, and so I was able to throw some pretty good combinations and stuff. But like, I really thought I was kicking his ass, but like, I was younger, so I don't think it was having a ton of an impact. And I had an opportunity for like a really good shot, and I thought it was because some of the stuff I was doing, but it turns out my brother got stung by a bee, and as he got stung by the bee, I punched him in the face and knocked him over this bench. It was amazing. I was like, I knocked your ass out. And he's like, I got stung by a bee. It was pretty funny. We got Flex Wheeler in the room. Boy, have you ever heard of a guy named Flex Wheeler before?
Absolutely. I love Flex Wheeler. How you doing, Flex?
Yeah, let's get Flex on here to speak. You ready to go?
What's up, guys? How are you guys doing?
We're doing amazing. And man, I got to thank you for, coming on our show a while back and sharing your story with everybody. People love that, and people still are talking about that podcast that we did several months ago.
Well, thanks for the platform, bro. I greatly appreciate it, and congratulations with all your success. It's definitely inspiring, everything you.
How you feeling nowadays? How are things going for you?
About the same as far as pain wise, but I mean, I'm pretty much tired of complaining about it.
Right.
It is what it is. So, I'm just going to ride it till the wheels fall off.
Understood. Do you think that you would ever turn to maybe some psychedelic type of therapy? I know my brother's had some success. I've heard some others. Is that something you would ever consider, or you don't think that's for you?
No, I don't really think it's for me, because even with regular opiates that I get when I'm in a hospital, I hallucinate tremendously. I mean, it's horrible how bad I hallucinate. So I've heard stories about some of the different stuff that works, and the possibility of them hallucinating. So no, if I lose it while I'm in a hospital, I definitely don't want to be around unprofessionals and lose it. That could be all bad. Yeah.
Chris, what do you think about that? Do you think there could be, potentials for some microdosing of anything I mean, it's hard to, you can't really, the hardest thing about pain is it's so hard to speculate how someone else's pain feels. So, it's hard to interpret that, hard to make sense of that. But Chris, do you think there would be anything that would maybe be beneficial to Flex?
At a point with pain where.
You still there? Oh, I think we lost you for a second there, Bor.
Looks like we got some connection problems, but Chris, whenever you're available.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think that psychedelics are just really misunderstood. I had a really huge misunderstanding of them going into it. I had always thought that they were, for I always thought they were for losers, that we would make fun of in high school and things like that. But I've learned that psychedelics can be very powerful, whether using them in a microdose where you don't trip at all, or using them in a massive, capacity where you do have a heavy trip. But for me and for people like Flex, I think what they do, which is really absolutely incredible that I never knew about, is they just rewire the brain. So a lot of times people get phantom pain, especially with an amputation like that. And like I said, I can't promise anything, but a lot of people say that phantom pain will disappear. And I know for people that suffer from that could be a miracle. So I think that there is potential, but again, if the patient is, against doing it, then I would not do it.
Yeah, and also Flex, my brother and I have been such huge fans of yours for so long. We're highly motivated by, the stuff that you were doing, and you've become a great friend as well. So, any help that we can offer, we're here for you to support you in whatever way that we can. And I could send out some kratom to you. I don't know if that will have any benefit to you, but we can see if that does anything. But maybe some of these things could potentially help. I know my brother's been helping people with some ibogaine therapy and some different things like that, and maybe that would be something that you would look at down the road as a possibility to be something that would help, or not. Either way, it doesn't matter. But we're here for you.
No, actually, I'm aware of you guys kratom, and I actually met with the person and I tried some, and it did, give some relief, but there was an interesting part of it also. So, but I appreciate it, and that feeling's mutual. The respect I have for all of you guys, including your parents, and also I know I said it privately, but my deepest condolence about your mother. But you guys, I can't think of a more dominant than you guys and what you guys been able to achieve and everything like that. My only regret is when Chris was getting at me to do the movie, I was just so busy. I didn't really think too much of it. And man, that thing was just a landslide. So, the feeling is greatly mutual.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We got a little bit of a topic today. So while I was on my walk with my dad this morning, he mentioned about the church that he goes to and the community that he's in, being and I'm just going to mention this briefly because we got a couple other people hopping in that we're going to talk to in a little bit, that are popping into the room. But, my dad, talked about his church being kind of poor, and in the area that they're in, they're kind of poor. And to me, that is the difference between making a statement and asking a question. And this is something that I've worked on with myself, my own internal dialogue. I've worked on this over the years to be something that was really beneficial to me. And I was like, damn, I need to share this out with people today. When I get on Clubhouse, I think people will enjoy this. So when you make a statement about yourself and you say, I'm too short, I'll never be bloop, that's a statement, and then it's closed off, and that's ingrained into your brain, and it's ingrained and absorbed into your body. When you make a statement and you say, I'm too dumb, I'll never be able to be an entrepreneur, I'm not smart enough, I'll never be able to get a real job, I'm a drug addict, it's going to be hard for me the rest of my life, I'm never going to meet anybody type of thing. All these statements we say about ourselves, I always get to bed too late. Those are all statements. And then once the statement is made, once you kind of have said that to yourself, it's now ingrained, and now it's part of every cell of your body, and you got to live with it. Literally have to live with that inside your body. But what you can do is you can say, rather than say, I always get to bed late, you can just flip it around and turn it into a question. How can I get to bed earlier? How can I sleep more efficiently? How can I be more productive during the day? Oh, I wonder if I examined my sleep. I wonder if I stopped having, pre-workout before my workout at 6 p.m., if it would be easier to get to bed at 10 p.m. You turn these things into questions rather than having them be statements. Once it's a statement, it's now kind of locked in. And now that becomes part of your belief system. And that belief system can either make you a winner, or it can make you feel like a loser a lot of times. And then once that starts to happen, then it only confirms the statement that you made about yourself, as opposed to posing the question and saying, what are some things I can do, rather than saying, my deadlift is always going to suck because I have a shitty back. Rather than saying that statement and closing things off, what are some things I can do to improve my deadlift? Or what are some things that I can do that would act as active therapy, that would be good medicine for my lower back, because my lower back's in pain and I don't think I'm very strong. And so what are some things I can do to be stronger? If I'm stronger, then potentially maybe my lower back will start to feel better. And so this is something that, was just coming to mind when I was talking to my dad about, making a statement versus posing a question. When you pose a question, now your mind and your thoughts are still wide open. But the second that you make a statement, it's period, game over. And so be careful with the statements that you make. I would say do your best to have your statements really have a lot of meaning behind them, and do your best to keep your statements as positive as you possibly can. We got my boy Joel Greene in the house, so it'd be great to talk to Joel. For some of you that don't know Joel, we've had him on the podcast a couple of times. We have him coming up again on the podcast, and Joel is just an absolute maniac. That's what I consider him when it comes to nutrition and health. I have not found anybody that knows the information that Joel knows. And so, Joel, how you doing today, buddy?
Waiting for him to. There he is.
Yep. I think I'm here. Am I here?
Yep, you're here.
You're in the house.
Hey, thank you, man. You are very, very kind. I'm doing well. Just actually finished an Instagram live, and is Flex Wheeler on this?
He is.
Oh my gosh, I'm having a fanboy moment here.
Right, I know. Flex Wheeler has an impact on people, right?
Oh, it just outside,
good and bad.
I mean, what can you say? I mean, just the greatest the greatest genetics ever in bodybuilding ever. The only guy, I want to talk about this when we do your podcast again. The only guy I think could come close would be Nsima. I think if Nsima took it seriously, I think he'd be close. He
might be. And Nsima's an absolute mutant of mutants. But, I always just think of that. There's a kind of iconic double bicep pose of Flex Wheeler that when I think about Flex Wheeler, that always kind of comes to mind. And I'm just like, no one could really fuck with that. Like that was just like, this is an unbelievable physique, unbelievable achievement. Flex, how do you sometimes feel about, or how do you deal with sometimes people bringing up the genetic component? Do you kind of hate that in a way because like maybe they're pulling away from your work ethic, or have you just accepted that that's just kind of the way things have been for you, or what are your thoughts?
No, not at all. As a derogatory statement or anything, it's true. I think a lot of us on this panel, we know of genetic freaks, but they just didn't do anything about it. It's in high school or college. We met them. They took that gift and maybe they became a bad person utilizing that gift. So no, it's a true statement. I without that opportunity, what I achieved, like saying, Manute Bo,
right.
Because he's 7 foot. No, it's tons of people out there are 7+ foot, but they're horrible. Anything. So no, I appreciate it. It's just for me personally, it's just not comfortable accepting compliments. That's just me as a person.
When you were training back in the day and you were at Gold's Gym, you mentioned some of this briefly on our podcast, but you seem to just be like in your own world. Was that the way that you had that? Was that the way that you felt that you had to lift back then? You had to kind of create your own, your little bit of your own bubble, and to be really honed in and focused. Because Gold's Gym is an interesting place. There's a lot of shit going on there. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot of different kinds of characters and different kinds of people, and maybe there's some people that aren't training for the Mr. Olympia. Maybe there's some people that are just kind of dicking around, for lack of a better term, just mess around with some leg extensions, some leg curls, and some stuff like that. So for yourself, did you have to kind of isolate your mind in some way so that you could really go in there and just kick the crap out of yourself?
It was really different then. It was great because, Gold's Gym was a melting pot of all different variety of people, homeless people, A-list stars, gold medalists in Olympics and NBA players. But back then it was a mutual respect. Once you pierced through those doors, it was about getting it in. And everybody respected everybody. It didn't matter what you achieved. When you walked through the door, you were just a normal guy in their training. So, but I think from my martial arts background, it's such an individual sport. So I didn't know it then, right? I wasn't that cerebral about it back then, but I just created this environment, going in the gym, training, eating crappy food and all that stuff. It's not my ideal of a great day. So what I did is, not really knowing it and understanding it back then, but now I do. I just brainwashed myself to think this is normal, and everything else, everyone else did in the world was not normal. So it's normal going in the gym and training twice or 3 times a day. It's normal eating 4 hours a day and not doing anything, going to the movies or hanging out or going club or whatever. Those are normal, things for me to do. And everybody else who does anything different than that, they're the ones who are not normal. And I really just brainwashed myself to believe that, because for me personally, it was impossible to live in both worlds. Impossible for me to go out and hang out and then go back into the dungeon and create havoc on myself. So I preferred to just stay submersed into my work, and I never came out. So, it had its good and bad points about it, but a diamond is created in a very harsh and violent world, and what comes out of that is something rare and unbreakable. So I used to just think of that, I would think of Olympic athletes who compete 363 days a year just for that one day to shine, and that's me. That's what it's about. So it just became normal for me.
It's interesting.
Flex, I have a question. I've kind of noticed that that guys that have a very athletic background, it seems to create a sort of unique shape in the muscle bellies and the peaks and the way the lines flow together. And do you think your martial arts background had anything to do sort of like with your shape, like just the tie-ins and the muscle bellies? And it's something I've noticed, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Possibly, but I'm not so sure. I always laughed at, I won't say anyone's name, but, I always laughed at someone would come out with a, best biceps or best calves or best quads when it was obviously, their dominant muscle group. They were just born with it, and they are then going to try to tell people how to build one like that. It's not true. You have to have that body type. It has to be, and somewhere in your DNA to even pull that out, or else it's not going to work. That's the same as, now we all know that, girls are in a gym and they're just squatting like crazy. And, there's jokes like, wow, she must squat because she has nice glutes. But, the truth is, if you don't have that extra gluteus chromosome, you can squat and do every freaking butt exercise you want. You might have a better butt than what you normally would, but you're not going to have no Brazilian or no butt like no sister. You know what I mean? So I think it homed and helped me with my focus and everything like that. But no, that's just a gift I was. If you go back to my adolescence, I always had, nice little tiny shaped biceps and stuff like that. I just, I found the right world to nurture that. Now, if I would have tried to be a NBA player or a track star or, like my brothers, I would have failed because I didn't realize what my genetic gift was. So, by the grace of God, I found out, what my genetic gift was, and I flourished in that environment.
Joel, you know quite a bit about genetics. You can probably speak upon some of these things. Joel and I were discussing in a text thread the other day about how there's a subset of people that I believe are, and maybe I'm saying this wrong, but I believe they're immune to cancer. And so sometimes we're just born with certain things that allow us to escape certain things, or sometimes we're born into something. I've heard more recently that they believe there's like a serial killer gene, a murder gene, which I've never really heard that until just a few weeks ago. It came up on a TV show or on a program I was watching, and I Googled it, and sure enough, it seems to be like a thing. Joel, what have you seen from some genetics? Like, is that true about there's some people that may be immune to like cancer or be able to have a propensity, for muscle growth and things of that nature?
Oh, sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a number of SNPs that lend themselves out. Muscle growth is sort of the easy one. But cancer too. Yeah. I mean, there are some people that just make, they have SNPs that make just certain types of antioxidants a little bit more. There's a SNP for glutathione in the gut. Some people have a little bit more of it. So you're just probably not going to get colon cancer. There's lots of things like that. And then that's just kind of the starter, the nature, and then the nurture aspect, your environment. There's this massive interplay between the gut biome and the mitochondrial DNA and the human genome. So you have this sort of potentiality of about 4 million different combinations, snippets you can get that, can do a bunch of things. So genetics play a huge part, but then environment also plays a pretty big part too. And I think there's some pretty good studies with twins that have actually shown some things along those lines. That might be something we want to talk about next time.
Yeah, I know, Joel, you've been talking quite a bit about dairy for a while now, and some of the benefits of dairy, and we were just kind of briefly mentioning the environment and what you do with your training and how you eat. I don't know how much it will impact how tall you're going to be necessarily, because maybe there's something encoded in your DNA that you top out at a certain height, even if you have all the nutrients and stuff. But what is some of the information that you stumbled upon to find milk to be fascinating, and how can people utilize, not maybe necessarily just milk, but how can people utilize dairy to their advantage in their body, in their quest for bodybuilding, looking bigger, being more fit, being healthier?
Yeah, there's a couple key ideas. One is this idea of grades of food. So when you look at any kind of food, you're just going to see that it doesn't matter what you're talking about, that there's kind of low grade, medium, high grade stuff. I think of like a Piedmontese steak versus like your, run of the mill grass fed steak. There's a huge difference. So most of us have been raised on kind of lower grades of dairy products that aren't very good. And one of the issues with dairy is that for most people, the genetic horsepower needed to digest dairy is not in the human genome. It's in the bacterial genome, and the bacteria make the enzymes we need to break dairy down. So what happens is there's some pretty interesting research that's identified basically in the 50s when mass pasteurization began. The bacteria needed to neutralize microRNAs in milk were destroyed. And so we see a lot of related issues, like problems related to dairy starting with that. And anecdotally speaking, what's pretty common is I see a lot of people who they'll go on very high grade dairy. They'll go on grass fed, unpasteurized, and they have no issues whatsoever with it. And then when they go on lower grades, they have all kinds of issues. So the first big idea is that there's this conflation of the bacteria with the food. Is it really the food, or is it the missing bacteria? And I'm not saying in all cases, but in a number of cases, maybe even most cases, the problem with dairy is the missing bacteria, not so much the dairy itself. Again, that's not all cases. There could be things like a casomorphin allergy or different things you have, but many cases, the problem people have with dairy is just missing bacteria. When you replace that bacteria, the issues with dairy go away. And then the benefits of dairy are pretty interesting to look at. One of the interesting things about dairy is the way that it affects signal pathways. So it's loaded in leucine. It turns on the sirtuin-1 gene. So it's very good. It's a very good pro-health, pro-longevity, pro-muscle gene because of the way that dairy together with the type of calcium in dairy with leucine modulates key signal pathways related to both longevity and growth. So it's sort of an ideal food from that perspective. Dairy activates SIRT1, you get this modulation of leucine, and then the calcium in dairy, it's sort of unique. You hear these kind of myths that dairy calcium is not absorbable, but it's exactly the opposite. There are very specific glycans, olink glycans, glycomacropeptides in dairy, and they actually basically facilitate the absorption of calcium in the gut. And so what you see when you look at dairy is it actually aids insulin function in a lot of cases. So when looking at dairy, you come to well, how can we use it strategically? And kind of an old bodybuilding thing is that, real colostrum, like the real stuff you get from a dairy farmer, it's very anabolic. So when you look at dairy as a tool set, if you have the right bacteria in the gut, it could be used in a number of ways. There's good research that shows that adding dairy in during active fat loss accelerates fat loss and mitigates weight regain. There's good research showing that when it's used kind of pre and post workout, it actually increases the rate of muscle synthesis. And there's all kinds of good stuff on it. So you just kind of have to get past the mythos that it's all bad, and then just start to look at the functional aspects of it. And, you can just kind of check the list. So hypertension, yeah, it actually helps with hypertension. And again, it just comes back to the grade of food that we're looking at. So, and that gets into this whole thing of, A1, A2 cows and, genetics and all that stuff. But suffice to say that there are highly functional compounds in dairy. One of the most functional compounds is there are angiotensin converting enzyme, inhibitory peptides in dairy. So it actually inhibits the ACE enzyme, the ACE1 enzyme. And so that does a number of things. It makes it very good for stimulating muscle growth, makes it very mitigating weight gain and a whole bunch of things. So it's highly functional. And if you just break dairy down into its components, you can see that. So if you break it down into the whey aspect and you look at all the functional aspects of whey, it's very useful. Functional aspects of casein, it's very useful. When you look at like the glycomacropeptides in dairy, things like human milk oligosaccharides, things like that. It's extremely functional.
The saturated fat that's in milk isn't even the same as saturated fat that we might find in beef. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you look at studies on dairy, there seems to be kind of a little bit of conflicting evidence. You'll see some studies that show that dairy that's high in fat, which we think of as saturated fat, is actually oncogenic, promotes cancer. But then you'll see other studies that show the reverse. And the farther you dig into it, it really just comes down to the old omega-6, omega-3 debate. Like whenever you look at dairy from, better fed cows, better fed animals, better fed, where you have a higher ratio of omega-3, you see that it's extremely good for ameliorating inflammation. It's anti-oncogenic. You have all this stuff. And then when you see lower grades of dairy with higher fat, that's where it can be a little bit problematic. You see a little greater risk of like prostate cancer, but it's a grades of food issue. In the higher grades with the higher quality, the saturated fat in dairy is really kind of a non-issue. It's actually very helpful.
Flex, did you, or if you're still in the room here, did you utilize any dairy, in your quest for bodybuilding, whether it be like at a younger age before you got really deep into bodybuilding? Did you utilize, I know like years ago, people used to like guys like Bill Kazmaier would just drink nearly a gallon of milk every day, gallon of full fat milk. And that's the way they were able to get big. Did you utilize dairy in any of your training?
No, not directly, but indirectly. Obviously, proteins, powders, and stuff like that were quite different back then. They weren't as refined as now. So I didn't seek it out as far as drinking it wise. But, obviously, it was involved in a lot of the protein drinks that I had back then.
Remember the original Metrex? It would like break your blender because it would mix up so thick, or the original like Myoplex and those kinds of things.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't want to mention any names, but of course, yeah. I mean, just protein back then was just pure garbage, man. It was just pure garbage.
We got Carl Lanore in the house here too, and I had him on my podcast recently. And Carl and I were just discussing this morning. It was Carl's idea that in the future he and I are going to do a clubhouse talking about how to get a podcast started and how to keep one running efficiently. Which I'm sure Andrew will have a lot to say about that as well. Welcome to the room, Carl.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for inviting me.
What you got going on over there?
Well, I'm hidden upstairs in the bedroom because we have workers here putting down a hardwood floor. But I'm listening to the discussion on milk. And after my show with Joel last week, I went ahead and ordered some raw and pasteurized milk. I've consumed raw and pasteurized milk for years, even decades. But then I lost my farmer, and I didn't put any effort into finding a new farmer. But I took my own advice and went to the website realmilk.com, which is managed by the Weston A. Price Foundation, found a new farmer. And I have milk that'll be here in about 3 days, 3 gallons of raw and pasteurized milk. Thanks for inspiring me, Joel, to get back in the game.
I have a good note about Weston A. Price. Our good friend, Dr. Joel Gould, is going to make a rap video about Weston A. Price, because what are his initials? WAP. So he's making a rap video about that Weston A. Price, if you know what I'm talking about. So I think that's pretty funny. Very nerdy, but pretty funny.
Yeah.
Joel, you got any more questions for Flex Wheeler? Or Carl, you got any more questions for Flex Wheeler?
Oh, I can go ahead, Carl.
No. Well, I was going to ask Flex about back in the heyday at Venice Beach, there was lots of discussions about, guys like Vince Gironda, Armand Tanny, even Jack LaLanne, providing raw and passion to a lot of the bodybuilders that they worked with. And did he ever encounter that at all?
No, when I got to Gold's Gym, they weren't that dominant back then. I'm not even sure if there was actually in Gold's Gym. I didn't get to Gold's Gym till like 90, and then from 90 on is when I kind of banged there.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, Flex, I can fanboy nerd up all day on you. So, question. I don't remember the exact show, but I think you came in around 226, and there was nothing to improve on. I mean, it was sheer perfection. There's nowhere to go from there. And then within a couple of years of that, kind of the keeping up with Ronnie age came in, 260, which you had no problem massing up to. I'm just kind of curious your thoughts in terms of, like, if you had to pick the winner of a Flex Wheeler, all the Flex Wheelers, which version would you pick?
It would actually be the 99 English Grand Prix. You can pull it up on YouTube. I've listened to the arguments, and I've actually compared photos to like my 93 when I was like 216 when I first won the Honor Classic. And yeah, my condition was extraordinary and stuff then, but I was too small and flat. Actually, my 98 Honor Classic winners would defeat, in my mind, would defeat my 93. But in 99 at the English Grand Prix, I was able to reach a condition and size that I don't think was ever matched throughout my career. And I was 256. Actually, me and Ronnie weighed the same weight. I strided everything, glutes and everything like that. Even Ronnie, we did a podcast a few months ago, and he's like, "Yeah, you beat me in that show. You whooped my ass in that show." I was like, "It doesn't matter because you walked away with the trophy." But no. That kind of happened because I was always chasing a champion. So first it was Dorian, and he was bigger. And even after I won the Honor Classic, and they said, "Hey, if you think you're going to go up against Dorian, you better get a lot harder and a lot bigger." And I remember looking at the judge, and in my ignorance, just I'm like, "Yeah, the only way I'm gonna get harder than I am now is in my coffin, man. What are you talking about?" But whenever you're chasing a champion, he's preceded as the standard. So of course they were all bigger than I was. So I just thought being bigger is better. In hindsight, I should have stayed right around 230, 245, and just tried to bang better and better condition in. But hindsight is worth a million.
When you were prepping for those shows, like, what did your food look like? What eating kind of high to moderate carbs, high protein, low fat? What were you doing?
No, what I didn't understand is my kidneys was failing due to FSGS, and the reason why I had to have a kidney transplant later on. But it was just getting harder and harder to reach my condition as I got older. So I had to start taking drastic measures and going, anywhere from 1 to 2, and even sometimes a little bit over 3 months, 0 carbs. And at that time, I would just I would eat 88 ounces of filet mignon a day would be my meals. So anywhere from 7 to 8 meals of 12 ounces of filet mignon would be my meal, along with just drinking Crystal Light.
I did not know that you were such a low carb. Like, you would compete that way without carbs?
Yeah, so I would go all the way up, and I don't really know if it's carb sensitive. I think if you train your body, it becomes normal. Just like like Stan coming from cold weather places now, he loves it here. I come from a hot area, so there's no way in the world I would love to be in a cold area. But if I live there long enough, you adapt, right? So I just had to learn to adapt to that, because it was the only way I could achieve great condition and being a lot bigger. But no, so my carb would, consist of maybe 1 or 2 meals going into the show. And sometimes my carb up would be like 2 spoonfuls of oatmeal. And, I would literally like light up like a candle. So it's kind of like, if there's a fire going on in a room and there's a deficit of air, so hence me just eating protein and no carbs. As soon as, you open a door, the fire it takes on a different life. It explodes. So, what I found after going so long on 0 carbs, all it took is just very little for my body to explode.
I think Joel and Carl right now have a full erection, by the way, because what you're speaking about is stuff that these guys are not only have they practiced a lot of the same things you're mentioning, but they also have studied it quite a bit. Joel, what have you kind of seen, in people that, switch to kind of lower carb diet for a period of time, and then they bring the carbs back in? It's kind of my understanding that in some cases, the carbs can almost act as being more effective as long as that's not done for too long. If we go keto for too long or kick the carbs out for too long, when we bring the carbs back in, it can sometimes be problematic. What have you seen?
What I see a lot of what I've seen, right, people that are coming off certain dietologies, like they did keto for 3 years or they did carnivore for a couple of years, and their insulin sensitivity has really kind of gone out the window, and they're having to retrain that back in. So I would use the analogy, insulin sensitivity is somewhat like a muscle. If you're not training it, it withers with use or disuse. And I think you're right in terms of there's a push-pull between, if you do it for a while, you kind of go low carb, but actually you get the reverse effect. It actually primes insulin sensitivity. And then over the really long haul, at least what I'm seeing a lot of is it seems to, in many cases, wither, and then you kind of have to train it back in.
How about for you, Carl? Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I would just say it's not for everyone, some people just define the laws of everything that we learned or we taught. So I remember Chad had Ronnie try to go 0 carbs, and I remember Ronnie telling him that he passed out, he went hyperglycemic and almost had to go to the hospital. And he was actually having 3 times the amount of rice I was having, and he still went hypoglycemic. So it's just, everybody's just so different. You just can't build a platform for anyone just because it worked for somebody else. It has to be, specific, and everybody has to be able to tolerate that.
In your quest to get bigger, Flex, when you went from being, 216, 218, to being 260, did you lift a lot heavier, or like, what did the training look like?
No, it was always the same. I mean, back then, if you didn't bang heavy and hard, you basically got your ASS whooped and kicked out the gym. So, my training partners was Rico McClinton and Chris Cormier, and we just not really, I guess, trying to do it, but we just were known to just throw some serious weight. We'd challenge anybody who came in to try to, F with the trio. I remember, a great friend of mine, Lou Ferrigno, I had the honor of competing on stage. I mean, I don't know how many of you have actually been able to compete with your childhood hero, but just to stand on stage with the Incredible Hulk is just
unreal.
I was just beside myself. But I remember the first time we met in the gym, he was actually, he was incline benching, and me and Rico and Chris were inclining benching on a bench next to him. So we would always, we'd just always F with people, not being rude about it, just competitive, having fun. It was all on love and respect. So, every time Louis threw another plate on, we'd throw another plate on, and he did a couple of reps, and then we all threw on 4 plates and we knocked out 10, and then Rico and Chris went a little bit higher. I think I went to like 465, and you kind of just looked over like, you guys are strong, so we earned this respect, but it was like that back then. But no, it's just an evolution of continuously doing the same thing. You just get better and better. If you're a martial artist, and you keep kicking, you just get better and better at that kick. It becomes lighter, becomes faster, becomes just second nature. It's like, Bruce Lee said, I fear not the man who practiced 1,000 kicks. I fear the man who practiced one kick 1,000 times. So imagine that, doing the same kick over and over and over 1,000 times. Imagine how supreme you're going to be at doing that. I mean, people are going to know that you're actually throwing that same kick, but there's nothing they're going to be able to do about it. So it was just an evolution of just being in the gym and training. So you just get, stronger and stronger. Again, it all depends on your body type and everything, but the same thing with sprinters or MMA or grapplers. They do the same thing over and over. So you take a grappler or a wrestler from the age of 8 or whatever, they're doing the same thing at the age of, 29 or whatever, but they've been doing it so long, they're so more superior at it. So it's just kind of an evolution of it.
And were you able to get bigger without carbs, or was that a different part of your career?
No, well, actually, the heaviest I was on 0 carbs, and there's a famous photo of me doing standing back rows, and Charles glasses in reflection of the mirror, and all you can see is my back. And at that time, I was, I think I was 269, going down to 249, and at that size and weight, my back is all striated and everything, but it just felt great to me. I didn't have a problem going 0 carbs. I had tons of energy, and I can just go in the gym and just bang super, super hard. So I didn't lose my strength or anything like that. It just really worked well for me.
We have,
go ahead. I just want to quickly say F. Michael Hearn. I've seen him popped up on here, so F. Michael Hearn.
Yeah, I gotta say the same exact thing. Before we get to Michael Hearn, we have we're in the presence of some greatness over here. We have one of the strongest female powerlifters of all time. We have Jenn Thompson has stepped into the room, and for those of you that aren't familiar with Jennifer Thompson, you guys need to do your homework, because this woman is an absolute beast. I think a 314-pound bench press. She has some all-time world records. I want to say in like the 140-ish pound class. Hopefully I'm not way off with that. Welcome to the room, Jenn.
You are way off with that.
Am I way off? What did I do? Did I fuck everything up?
No, it's like it's 135. That's plus 140. And I hit 330 bench the other day.
Oh my God. Guys,
you guys update my resume.
Yeah, you guys have never seen anything like it before. I had Jenn at Super Training Gym at one point, and she was on racking on a bench press 500 pounds, and it just didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, how does this normally, I'm used to seeing guys that weigh 300 pounds, be able to do that. And just to see a woman do that and to hold the weight there for 10 seconds as she was, just working on getting herself conditioned to the heavy weights was unbelievable. And then on top of that, I tried to work out with her, but it didn't really work out so well because she did so many exercises. I was like done after 2 or 3, and she went on to do like 8 or 10 exercises in a day. So I was like, I need to just go home and lick my wounds.
That was one of the best times. I got to get out to Super Training again. I'm really enjoying listening to all the speakers on here, especially a lot about carbs. You don't think about, carbs as something as a powerlifter to worry about, but a lot of us are in tight weight classes where, we do really worry about carbs, and there's the fine line between, getting enough carbs for energy and then putting on too much weight. And carbs are the best carbs to get. So I really am enjoying this conversation.
Jenn, how have you been doing this for so long? I mean, how long have you been powerlifting for?
Well, my first competition was in 1999.
Damn.
And I'm so excited they're having USA Powerlifting Run in June. Give me an opportunity to go for my 10th national title.
Oh, my God. And then how are the squats and deadlifts and stuff going these days? Are they still moving along pretty nicely?
Yeah, I heard Joel a little bit talk about injury, and so I'm actually, with all this COVID stuff, was actually sort of good timing for me because I'm coming off a broken pelvis, so I've had to do a lot of training and get ready back for that. So I'm finally just starting to hit some PRs in my squat and get my deadlift back up for where it used to be. So I'm pretty excited to come back at 47 and show these youngins that I still got it.
I absolutely love it. That's incredible. What do you think has been a key component to you staying healthy and still being able to, I mean, a 330 pound bench when you were already benching, 314 pounds and already just having tons of strength. Do you think there's a big genetic component in there, along with maybe some of the things you're doing in your training?
I don't know about genetics. Like, I'm not really built for a bench presser. I'm tall for my weight class. I got really long arms, but we've always been really focused on form and technique and never breaking that. And so I honestly just think that that's been a savior of all these years. I've never had any shoulder problems, any back problems. I think just because we kind of have a staying in our gym, it's better to miss with good technique than to get it with bad. So, you want a good miss, not a bad win. So I think just sort of that philosophy has kept us. And then we've always been, for powerlifters, like you were saying, with all the exercises, we've always been huge into accessories. Everyone's always accused me of having more of like a bodybuilding workout than a powerlifting workout. But I honestly think with all those accessories and making the whole body entirely strong and not just squat, bench, and deadlift, that's been the one thing that's kept my longevity and kept me from being injured.
We had Stuart McGill on our podcast yesterday, and we were talking about the GOAT. We were talking about Ed Cohn. And one of the things that Stu mentioned was that when you do a lift improperly, it's important to note, yes, you can lift that way. That's going to be a way that you can sometimes make a lift. It may happen here and there, but you're best off having that happen to you in competition and really trying to, you're doing your best to manage that doesn't happen in your training, because what happens is when you make a lift with bad form, you're polluting the whole system and you are encoding the whole system. You're signaturing your muscles to say, hey, I'm signing off on this. This is the correct way to lift. And that's like embossed into your muscles.
Totally makes sense.
It's basically kind of stuck there in a way. And then you would have to sort of work on relearning how to do the lift the right way. And I think Ed Cohn and yourself, I think both of you have done an amazing job of staying in your lane, making sure you're making the lifts. It's really tough to do that because we get excited and we think we're going to be able to make these lifts. We get fired up. And another person I've seen do a great job of this is Mike O'Hearn. Mike O'Hearn, it's very rare for me to see Mike O'Hearn finish out a very strained lift. The lift is always done the way that it's supposed to look. And I've never really seen this from him where he's got to like put a weight back that was too heavy or whatever. It seems like most of the time he's doing a really good job of sizing up where he's at and knowing what he's able to actually lift. And as far as I know, Mike has shared with me that he's had some owies over the years, he calls them. But I don't think he's ever had a single injury. I don't think he's had a tear. I don't really know if he's ever had any like back issues or anything like that. But I think when you go in the gym and you treat it like a martial art, when you kick a bag or you're kicking, somebody's gloves and punching and stuff like that, they don't really they don't let you get away with having bad form. But for some reason in the gym, because we get fired up and we like to crank the music and have some nose torque, we allow for that. And we really need to do a better job of managing that. Mike, are you still in the room here, buddy? I think.
Yep, I'm still here.
There we go. There's Mr. O'Hearn. How's it going, man?
My first time, so be gentle on me.
Yeah, you've said that before, and it actually turned out to be very, very false. A lot looser than I expected, if you know what I'm saying.
Wow, 135, Jen, and a 330 bench. Truly impressive.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you.
Oh, no, it's just, I'm sitting here next to a WWE Hall of Fame wrestler, Billy Gunn, who's like 6'5", 270, and he can't even bench 135. So it's sorry,
that can't be true of the badass Billy Gunn. That's Mr. Ass that we got on the show right now. Oh my God.
My husband's favorite thing is to say when we're training, we have friends come over, hey, that's good, you got close to benching close to a 135-pound girl. Nice job. To everybody that comes in here, which is probably why we have trouble finding people to work out with us.
Mike, you're gonna have to put Mr. Ass on the horn here. Well, I got a question for him. Yeah, absolutely.
You want to say anything to everybody here?
Yeah, I just want to let you all know that Mike O'Hearn is my best friend.
Oh my God. I'm glad somebody likes him. You can have him. Mr. Ass, I got to ask you a question before you drop off over here. What was it like to have the name Mr. Ass? I mean, that's an unbelievable nickname.
Well, it all came around like unexpectedly, and just, Attitude Era, everything you did just stuck. So,
right.
I mean, I just ran with it. I mean, no sense in fighting it. So I just started pulling my pants down all over the place. Kind of a weird thing, but it was kind of cool.
That was such a fun time in professional wrestling. You were part of D-Generation X, and that was amazing. Yeah, the Attitude Era, and then it kind of shifted over into kind of the Stone Cold era, which made the WWE go absolutely bonkers when The Rock was there, and you had Undertaker and Kane, and it was unbelievable. I would imagine you probably miss a lot of that stuff, huh?
Yeah, you just miss, the biggest thing is you miss the people, because they were so, they were so live. They were so good. They were so full of energy. You couldn't help but put on, the best show that you possibly could, just because the people were so into it. But yeah, I miss it. It was a lot of fun. I mean, they're good today as well, but it was just a different time.
What's it like being more handsome and just a little bit taller than Mike O'Hearn and a little bit bigger than Mike O'Hearn? How's that feel?
Well, it feels great.
We're losing the connection.
I think, and you knew this was going to happen, because anytime you're not talking about Mike, it's just we have to switch the subject. But
right.
He doesn't like it, but he has to deal with it. That's why he buried me at first when he came on your show.
I don't know what burying. You can't bench 135. She out benches you. She does 3 times your weight.
But she's strong and does this for a living. I don't work out for a living.
So she does real lifting.
I don't know about for a living. Let's go back. Nobody can really powerlift for a living but Mark Bell, I think.
There you go. I'll take that. From one of the goats of powerlifting right there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mike, what do you got going on? I know you have something up your sleeve at all times. So what do you have going on with your training and your diet?
Diet is... you want to tell me how the diet is?
Yeah. You mean diet number 10 this week?
Right.
Yeah. I am slicing and I am getting the best shape of my life and my career right now, because we do have Hercules coming up, a TV series. So
awesome.
Pretty stoked about that, and just want to make sure that I come in the very best I can. And they got classes this last year, which worked out great with COVID, because just been locked down with classes and training. So it's been a nice year for me, actually.
You gonna get down to what, 205 pounds?
I will break 240 though.
I have found something that Mike O'Hearn can't do. He cannot break the 220-pound barrier. He's a big boy with a big old ass.
Yeah, 220 was puberty.
Right? Yeah, your lower body, I think, is too jacked to be able to figure it out. How has some of the restrictions and stuff? I think Gold's Gym has been shut down for a while. And I also know that, being in your house before, that you've been working on your garage gym for a while, building it up and building it out. Did some of the restrictions, have they negatively impacted you? Because I know that you loved being at Gold's Gym. You love being there at 4 a.m. Or did you just stroll out to the garage and have the same feel?
Lucky enough with the gyms. I've actually been lucky enough where we've had gyms, and there's been some great gym owners in California, which is I know a very shut down location, but they've fought against it and kept the gyms open. And then I've got a great setup at my house, and then Gold's Gym itself has been great to me during this last year. So it's worked out good for me. What was the greatest thing is that this years I've been having to be in a deficit easily this last 10 years of my career, just guest posing almost every other weekend, and it does damage to the body. If anybody knows about nutrition, if you're always in a deficit, it kind of hurts you. And it was nice this year that I got to go off season and put that memory muscle back on and eat again and get the body functioning again. So it felt great to just get all that memory muscle back and that size back, and went up to a nice 300 pounds, and it just felt great and healthy.
How do you manage, just getting fatter? I think that's kind of tough for some people. What kind of goes through your mind? Are you just like, I'm shifting gears and I'm not going to really maybe look at myself in the mirror as much. I'm not going to maybe wear as tight of clothes or whatever. Like, how do you personally manage that? Because it can be kind of a thing that messes with people's minds when they start to gain weight. I know you get the benefit of getting stronger. So do you just kind of shift your focus on to other things?
I think for me, and I've been in this game, and it was like Jen was talking about, she was competing back in 99 and stuff like that. And I remember that I was on stage in the early 80s. So the one thing I always accepted and wanted to do is be able to lift my life away. And I love lifting. And so when I got to go off season and put that weight back on, the one thing I knew more than visual is that whatever work I was doing now is going to help me to be able to continue my career and give me some more years in the industry. And so that's what was most important relative to the visual. I could always get in shape if my body was functioning correctly. So that was it wasn't about, hey, can you do a photo shoot today and be on the cover of the magazine? Well, no, but my healing of the body and making sure any owies are okay and stuff like that, like you were talking about earlier, owies. We all get these owies and stuff. And so calories help you recover and help you take care of those owies. So it was a great year for me. And it was just the focus on the future, my possibilities of doing Hercules and all this. And
you're 50 plus years old, right?
Dude, I'm 175. What are you talking about?
Oh, you're almost up there with Big Will. I think Big Will told me at one point.
Why do you think I ended up with a Romanian girl?
You know what? And I want to say that I used to think that it was a dream, but that would be weird for Big Will to be in my dreams. But I think he actually did tell me in person that he's a vampire and that he was about 375 years old. And he was very serious about it. Has he ever told you that he's 375 years old before?
Do you remember him with the fangs?
Absolutely.
He got fangs put in.
Yeah, I was like, what happened to you? He said, I turned into a vampire, Smelly. I was like, what the? He really did turn into a vampire.
It's a very uncomfortable conversation.
I don't know, man. It was crazy. We have Zach Bitter in the room too, and I'd love to get some commentary from him because Zach might have some questions for some of the powerful, jacked people in the room. Zach is a long distance runner, running over 100 miles and doing these crazy endurance feats. So he's on the opposite side of the spectrum than us people that like to pick up some heavy ass weights. How's it going, Zach?
Yeah, Mark, I was just going to ask if anyone has any tips of how you go from 140 pounds to 280 pounds.
You're going to have to eat a lot. Lots of food. Is that what you weigh, 140?
That's usually what I'm at about when I'm ready to do a race. So it ranges a bit in off season and things like that.
Is it ever helpful for you to, I would imagine it's helpful for you to gain weight to be able to, perform in the gym a little bit better, gain some strength, do so in a safer fashion. And then do you usually, do you try to lose weight going into some of the things that you're doing, or do you just end up losing weight because you're running a lot?
Yeah. The funny thing is, like, when I get into kind of the peak training phase, it's like almost force feeding at that point, because there's days where I'm eating like 2 to 3 times my resting metabolic rate. So what I like to do is after I finish a big race, I'll take some downtime and intentionally gain like anywhere between probably 2 to 3 to maybe up to 5 pounds. And then when I kind of start, it makes it just a little more easy, because for the first like third or so of it, I don't have to necessarily be eating past satiation because I've got that little bit of extra weight on. And I just kind of let that dwindle down. And then once I kind of hit goal race weight, that's when I have to start kind of focusing on maybe eating sometimes when I'm not hungry. and making sure I don't dip below that.
We had Flex Wheeler earlier talking about his experience with some really low carb diet type of stuff, which I never even actually knew. Flex and I have never talked about it previously, but you utilized a lot of low carb stuff and have gotten yourself to be to the point where your body can maybe a little bit more efficiently run off of some fats and stuff. Can you give us some commentary on what helped you to lean towards this, and how has it worked for you?
Yeah. I've been kind of skewing low carb since the end of 2011. So I've been doing it for about 10 years now. And my original kind of catalyst or draw towards it was when I first started kind of racing ultra marathons more exclusively. And that just kind of opened up some doors, since it is relatively low intensity due to the increased duration. You have a few more options in terms of the rate at which your fuel source kind of gets to you. So fat burning was a little more conducive to managing some of the logistics and longer workouts and races, just because I was able to kind of reduce my kind of intra-race fueling needs and avoid some of the stomach and digestive issues you get from trying to run and eat at the same time. The way I kind of went about it was I started with kind of a more of a strict ketogenic diet, just to kind of get my body kind of used to that way of eating. And then once I started kind of picking up training again for a build-up, I started playing around with like, what does a low carbohydrate diet look like in the context of my life, quite polar on where I am in training, if I'm recovering versus peaking and all that sort of stuff. So what I kind of found out in the first couple of years doing it was there was some reason to be a little more flexible with what I kind of considered low carb and be a little more periodized with it. So like off season, I'll oftentimes dip quite low into kind of a classic ketogenic type range of 50 grams or less. As I start to kind of build up some of the lower end aerobic type workouts, I'll up the carbs a little bit, but not a ton. I might go up to maybe 100 grams or so phase. And then when I'm hitting some of the higher intensity and higher volume phases of training, I might flex up a little higher and get up to around 150 grams of carbs a day. And essentially what that's done is it's just kind of raised up my fat oxidation rate. So like if I go into a lab and get hooked up to all the machinery and stuff, and they look at just like what I'm burning between carbs and fats throughout various intensities, I'll just have like a much higher fat oxidation rate across the kind of spectrum of intensities. I still can go all out and sprint and be burning 100% glycogen, but I'm not doing that in races. So it's not as big of an issue for me from a performance standpoint. But I think what I ended up doing when I've talked to guys like Dr. Dominic D'Agostino and Dr. Jeff Volek and some of the guys who've really looked into this stuff in a lot more detail than I have, and their message has kind of been that there's probably some application to keeping some carbohydrate around, just so so I'm able to utilize that as a tool versus kind of going strict ketogenic or zero carb in some cases, and essentially like eliminate that tool altogether. So that, and just kind of working with the ranges of fat oxidation rates that are going to be like optimal for me versus going all the way in, where, for example, like when I got my fat ox tested most recently, I was right around 1.5 grams per minute. So at that rate, it's high enough where I can keep my intra-race fueling down to like, say, 20 to 40 grams per hour versus what I would need if I were moderate to high carb, which would be closer to 60, sometimes even 90 grams per hour. So there's really not, since I don't really get a whole lot of stomach issues when I'm staying like at or below 40 grams per hour, there's not as big of an incentive to dip much lower than what I have been nutritionally, because I just don't really need to improve my fat oxidation rates any more than that. So that's kind of where I got to with those numbers.
Awesome. Very cool.
What's up, Power Project fam? This episode is brought to you by Element Electrolytes.
Speaking of Element Electrolytes, I actually wanted to ask you, Nsima, you being all jacked and tan and all strong and pretty, do you take your Element Electrolytes pre or post workout?
I actually take it pre, during, and post.
Oh.
And sometimes I'll do more than one pack. So if I finish the pack of Element that I had during like my workout or my jujitsu session, I'll pop out another one, sometimes post. And that hydration really helps my recovery. Because sometimes after you get done with a really hard workout, when you were sweating a lot, you feel sore, you feel kind of tired, and you feel drained. There is absolutely no problem with taking more than one pack of Element.
Yeah, I'm really interested in trying it like intro workout, right? I've always been one of those guys that's like, oh, you got to have your pre-workout and then your post-workout, and in the middle it's like usually water or something, right? But now with Element Electrolytes, from what Rob Wolf told us about how it like maintains strength and all this other just amazing benefits, I'm really stoked about it. And if you guys want to be like us, we actually like getting the value bundle because you essentially get a box for free. But if you're not ready to fully commit, Element is still offering you guys a free Element recharge pack. So that's an 8 sample pack. All you have to do is cover the shipping. You can do so by heading over to drinklmnt.com/powerproject. Again, it's absolutely free. You just have to cover shipping. Make sure you guys go there and check it out right now.
We got Nsima in here as well. And my brother, Nsima does jujitsu and powerlifting and bodybuilding. And he's somebody else that utilizes some low carb as well.
Yeah, I'm actually driving back home from training or not home, but I'm driving to the gym from training right now. But Zach, I was actually curious. Do you ever switch things around as far as like your, I guess, fuel for competition? Like, do you ever employ high carb anymore, or are you staying with what you got right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I rarely, if ever, go above about 30% of my intake from carbohydrate. There's a few days every once in a while where I'll just, like, for example, I was wearing a CGM monitor for a while, and I just wanted to see kind of how it responded differently in like a moderate carbohydrate side of things. So I think that day I hit like 50 to 60% of my intake from carbohydrate. But other than like, a couple days a year like that, I'm basically staying in what you would consider, at least from a percentage standpoint, low carbohydrate pretty much year round. Yeah, I haven't really, it's really weird since I've been doing it for 10 years now. It's just like, that's where I kind of gravitate towards. So it almost feels like if I were to go and eat the majority of my intake from carbohydrates, it kind of feels the same way as like for someone who's doing their first couple days of a low carb or ketogenic diet, where it's just like everything feels like it's flipped on its head.
Very cool. Yeah, it's it's fascinating on once you learn, how your body really operates and what it can operate on, and when you start to identify the fact that you don't really need that much dietary carbohydrates to get a lot of great benefit from carbs. What I personally have recognized for myself is that by getting into like a keto diet and for a little while chasing after ketones and kind of playing around with that whole game and just being very inquisitive about it and learning about it and then experiencing a lot myself, is I learned that it's kind of great to not be in ketosis, like to just maybe scrape up against it here and there. Like maybe you're producing more ketones than the average person because they keep interrupting their ability to produce ketones by eating carbohydrates kind of all throughout the day. And if you just utilize a little bit of fasting, if you utilize a little bit of low carb throughout the day and you're exercising, I'm imagining that you're going to be getting some of the benefits of tapping into, your own body fat, tapping into fatty acids in the body and being able to produce ketones and get some of the benefits from them. So I think sometimes people maybe have the wrong idea about like a low carb lifestyle, but I like talking more about low carb or being meat minded almost more than I do talking about carnivore or talking about keto. Keto, kind of to me implies that you're kind of at a 1-to-1 ratio with fat and protein, and that just doesn't, it can work really well. It's not that practical. And in some sense, it's kind of gross to, eat something so fatty, especially before a training session. I realize you can, rework your day and have it be later on in the day. But, I also think it kind of shuts off the ability to eat carbs when you're eating so high fat. So I think, again, like people always talk about the answer lies somewhere in the middle. And I do understand people have different metabolism. So there's many people that could thrive off of having a higher carbohydrate diet, and bringing down the fat calories a little bit and having the protein be, 1 gram per pound of body weight if they're interested in maintaining muscle mass and maybe even growing a bit. While another person could, bring the carbs down to, maybe, I don't know, 100 or 50 and end up having benefits of, producing ketones and being able to run off the glucose as well.
Yeah, I really like this guy, Dr. Mike Nelson, who talks a lot about kind of the metabolic flexibility side of that, and kind of highlights what you said, Mark, where there's some things that are fairly standard for anyone kind of aren't taking on a low carbohydrate diet, but then there's also some individuality there in terms of like, what are you trying to do with this, and what are you asking your body to do, and what give you that ability to shift back and between those two fuels instantly as you need to. And that's kind of the fun experimental side of it at this point, I think, when you start working with yourself. And I'll add, I think on this call too is Douglas Hilbert, who's one of Verda's lead coaches. So he probably has a lot of information along the lines of just working with people that kind of maintain what Verda would consider a low carbohydrate diet as well.
Yeah, that's great information. We got a question from a listener. Why don't you go ahead?
Cool. So we just invited him to speak, as well as the Douglas that Zach was referencing. But Daniel, what you got, man?
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me?
We can.
There we go. Thanks for inviting me up. I really appreciate it. Mark and Chris, I first heard y'all on the Peter Attia podcast way back when, and really love what you guys are doing in the health and wellness space. Just, breaking things and making names and stuff like that. Zach, I met you at a Metabolic Health Summit last year. Super bummed that it's canceled this year, and look forward to it next year. I was wondering, what's your primary kind of like fat source, and are you incorporating any organs in your diet?
Yeah, that's something I've probably played around with quite a bit over the 10 years I've done it. Once I found the macronutrient ratios that work well for me during certain phases of training, then it was just like, well, how do I get creative and switch those up within that framework to see like what particular foods I both kind of prefer or feel better on. So, I've done everything from just a very low animal product versions of like a lower carbohydrate to like almost strict carnivore versions of it. At the moment, I'm kind of probably somewhere in between with a fair mix of the two. So like some of the primary ones would be like from the animal side, lots of like egg yolks, fatty cuts of meat. Usually the fat left over from the amount of meat I'm consuming is enough, but if not, then I'll use like butter or ghee and things like that. Kind of on the plant side, I'll do quite a bit with like olive oil, sometimes like almond oil and things like that. If I'm just putting it on top of stuff like nut butters and things like that when I'm in higher training and just like trying to match the calorie need and things like that. From a little more of an engineered side of things, I'll do, I work with a company called S Fuels that makes some like kind of, they're essentially like the fat version of like what you would get from like a Gatorade powder or something like that. So they've got a couple options that I'll use for training purposes when the intensity is low and I want some fuel on board, but I want to stay away from carbohydrates. And those tend to be kind of my go. I should add, I've been quite a bit of dairy recently too, just to kind of see how that goes. So like full fat yogurts, cheeses, that kind of thing too.
How's that been working? You feel like that's been working pretty good?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth with dairy, just as it's kind of like eggs, where like one day you'll see all this positive stuff about it, the next day you'll hear a bunch of negative stuff about it. So, I've gone through phase where I cut it out altogether, and when I brought it back the last time, I went with like a lot more fermented products at first. And what I've noticed is I can eat quite a bit of dairy from full fat versions, especially if it's like hard cheeses and that sort of stuff. if I'm keeping in some fermented versions of it. So at first I would only like fermented stuff like yogurts and hard cheeses sparingly. But after doing that for about a year or a little past a year, I've probably split that a little closer to a 50-50. And as long as I'm keeping some of the fermented stuff in there, it seems to be fine to have the non-fermented stuff as well. I haven't noticed any negative side of it. And being from Wisconsin, I love cheese. So it's nice to be able to keep that in the rotation.
And the organ meats kind of, they felt beneficial?
Yeah. I'll go through phases where I'll have more of it than other times. It's been a lot easier now because I think with the most recent kind of push with the carnivore movement, there's just so many like organ meat, I don't want to say alternatives, but I guess like you can get like beef jerky versions of organ meats now and that sort of stuff too, which makes it a little easier to kind of have it if you're not looking to prepare. The biggest hurdle for me is always like, am I going to get around to spending the time to prepare like liver in a way that's palatable versus just
you know what,
quick and kind of choking it down.
You're not going to have to worry about that anymore because I have made something called Mark Bell's Steak Shake, and the Steak Shake has whey protein in it. It has egg in it. It has beef protein in it. And in addition to that, it has liver, kidneys, heart. It's got just about everything that you need in there. And, the good thing is I made it taste good. So it comes in chocolate and vanilla and just tastes like a regular protein shake that tastes good. So I'll send you that as soon as we're about a week out from getting that product. And as soon as we get it, I'll ship a bunch out to you. You can try it out yourself.
Cool. That'd be great. I think I heard you mention that on one of the more recent podcasts.
Right.
So can't remember who the guest was, but you guys were talking about blending steaks, I think. So
right.
in my mind.
Yeah. Douglas, if you could chime in here from Verta Health. I believe my brother Chris and I went to Verta Health a while back, but I'm not sure if that was the name of the company. This is the company that wishes to help solve.
Met with the boss.
Yeah. We talked to the boss, and I know that company's on a mission to, I think, serve like 100 million people or something like that have had diabetes. If I can't remember what the number was, but it was something wild like that. And I just thought, man, what a cool mission this company's on. Can you tell us a little bit about Verta Health and what you guys have going on there?
Yeah, and I'm on the bike, so I try to slow down so I'm not out of breath. But the mission is to reverse diabetes in 100 million people by 2020. And I've been there 5 years. Did you meet, who'd you meet? Dr. Finian Volek or Sami Inkinen?
Yeah, we talked to, the owner. Yeah.
It's Sami, but we also met with Dr. Finney on his own also.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been there 5 years. It's amazing. And I was just on Zach's show and, I've followed you guys for a long time, more into the endurance side like Zach. But I really like the stuff you guys put out. I mean, coaching's coaching.
Right.
It almost doesn't matter what the sport is. The principles are usually pretty similar, and humans and wants and needs. So
how do we reverse diabetes? Sounds like a tall order.
It's lowering glucose and, getting people's A1Cs down, and at the same time helping them get off some of these diabetes medications. So there's a nutrition protocol. It's personalized and individualized, and then everybody gets a medical doctor and a health coach. So that's my role there.
Yeah, I've just in giving out information, on diet and nutrition, I've just had so many people, say, hey, I've been able to reduce my medication. I've been able to get off of my medication, and as long as they can kind of, uphold their end of the deal of embarking on some walks here and there, and then embarking on some lifting, and trying to have some sound nutrition and surrounding it, they can usually fend it off pretty well. And I've seen people reverse their way out of diabetes who've had it for a really long time, a decade or longer, reverse their way out of it in like 3 months. It's kind of unbelievable the things that we can control with our food. And I think that we always just think that we are a byproduct of our environment and we can't really make a change. It's too hard. That's going to be too much. That's going to take too much time. And we just have we do have roadblocks in our way, but I think it's our mindset that really screws us up because yes, you can look at the grocery store and say, hey, 80% of the food there is processed food, but you can also look at it and say 80% of the stuff that they call food there at the grocery store is not actually food that was ever meant for human consumption. Like we will never adapt and therefore never be, well, I don't know about never, but we will most likely not be able to adapt to Cheez-Its. We most likely will not be able to adapt to Frosted Flakes or Cocoa Puffs or cookies or donuts or any of these things that are highly processed, potato chips and so on. And so I think when you start to recognize that, like, hey, you know, you're thinking that there's a lot of convenient foods around, but you're mistaken because those things are not food. And when you become a person that starts to get healthier, you start to recognize that and you start to realize I've just been lied to because this is all the stuff that's advertised to me every day. It's very rare that you see a steak advertised on TV, but how often do you see Coke and Pepsi? And I think there's 9 major companies. There's 9 major companies that control our food in this country. And we show them respect every day by putting more money in their bank account. And we need to fucking stop doing that shit because we are our own worst enemies. We are promoting diabetes. We are promoting to reach 100 million people that have diabetes, to reach 100 million people to reverse diabetes from, you need to have people that have diabetes in the first place. And we shouldn't be getting to this point. I do understand different people have different metabolisms and so forth, but we should be able to knock the shit out of this stuff, and it should be pretty simple. But we're seeing, like, we keep voting with our dollars over and over again. We keep paying these companies every day millions upon billions of dollars, encouraging their behavior so they can come out with a new form of Oreo cookies that are, you know, Oreo cookies with like cookie dough in the middle, and Oreo cookies with cake in the middle, and double stuffed Oreos, and this version of Ben and Jerry's and that version of Ben and Jerry's. And it's like, man, where does I enjoy some of these foods from time to time as well, but they're not really, when you recognize that this is not really food, this needs to represent a very small portion of your diet. The larger portion of your diet needs to come from natural foods that are meant for human consumption, things that we've eaten over the years. And we need to kind of stick to that. Fruit, vegetables, meat. If you stay in that land 90% of the time, you're going to most likely be a very, very healthy individual without even a lot of exercise, without even a lot of lifting weights and stuff like that. Somebody else want to chime in? Hello? Hello? Echo chamber?
You crushed it.
Well, I would say, Mark, like you basically listed all my favorite foods. So
I know
it's like research chemicals and peptides, right? It should be labeled not fit for human consumption.
Right.
And I came to this through I'd been a collegiate athlete, and then kids and job and life kind of hits, and I ate myself 60 pounds heavier and into pre-diabetes and had triglycerides at 400. And I bought Finney and Volek's book, and to me, I was like, well, this is not rocket science here. Eat real food, and stop hitting the donuts and the pizza and the pasta, and to me it was simple, but it wasn't easy. And I think that's where with Verta, where the coaching comes in, is like the plan is not complicated. The medical side can get a little complicated, but it's more about having that connection and community and human support, to kind of get you through those nights where you eat that whole pizza and then you feel terrible about yourself and the guilt and shame sets in.
And it's always at night too, my dad used to always say, like, nothing good happens past 11 p.m., but when it comes to your nutrition, I think like nothing good happens after you eat dinner. Like once you've eaten your dinner, even if your dinner wasn't a great choice, whatever you're going to eat after dinner is probably going to be worse. You're probably going to be, snacking on a bunch of processed foods. And just just eating calories that you don't need. And I think that if you can start to place that into your brain, that you literally don't need it, and you just have an understanding of, hey, I feel like just enjoying this anyway. I recognize that I don't necessarily need it. Once you start to sort of recognize some of these things, I think gets a little easier to kick some of these things either out of your life or to just replace them. You know, can I replace my binging and snacking with an apple? And can I say, hey, look, you know, if you want something more to eat another apple. And if you eat 2 apples and you want something more to eat another apple. You know, it most likely will fill you up like crazy. It might hurt your stomach, which actually might be a good experience, because you might say, shit, man, 3 apples is too much. Tomorrow I'm just going to eat 1. You might be able to dial it back or find things that are just low calorie. I've been eating Jell-O here and there, and like Jell-O has like 10 calories in it. So if I ate 10 of these little cups of Jell-O, it's 100 calories. Like, what's that hurting? It's not a negative impact on my insulin and my glucose levels, because there's no sugar in there. I mean, it might have some artificial sweeteners, and that's debatable on whether that's how bad that is for us or whatever. But, you know, just see if you can make a little bit better decision. And I see so many people saying, or hear so many people saying, oh, it's just so hard, man. There's so many convenient foods around me. Again, motherfucker, those are not real foods. Stop being a pussy. That's not real food. Don't let your mind be weak. Don't let people trick you. Stop falling for it. It's time that we wake up and have an awakening when it comes to our food chain, and that we recognize that that is not nutritious for us at all. It might be pleasurable, but it doesn't have the nutrients that we need in order to make progress, in order to sustain our life. We literally don't have an actual need for it. I know how difficult it can be. I've been trapped by food myself many times, and I still fall into these traps. But it's just for those types of foods are, if you just can kind of put them in a category of like, those are things that are for pleasure. Those are things that are for maybe a slight form of entertainment. But how much of your life should you have to be entertained? You know, that shouldn't be something that you have to go to all the time. And even on top of that, we got to be really careful with our children that they're not going there all the time. You know, you want to provide your kids with good options, good healthy nutrition, good healthy options, rather than, you know, saying, oh, we're going to eat these steaks and this fish, but we're going to cook some frozen pizza up for the kids. Like, that's neglect. And neglect is a form of abuse, in my opinion. You neglect somebody and you shortchange somebody that is putting their health and their life in your hands. To me, that's a form of abuse in a sense. And I know that people might think that that's a little crazy and that's a little wild. And I'm not saying we don't cook pizza in my house for my kids. We do sometimes. But be in recognition of what it is that you're doing, and just work on making better decisions more often rather than making the shitty decisions.
Mark, would you say that it's is it physical or is it mental, right? Because we eat dinner, we're stuffed, we're good, but why do we still kind of poke around the pantry and look for like the opposite of whatever it is that we just ate? We ate something salty, we want something sweet. What is that?
Yeah, I don't feel like it's physical. Some people might. It's debatable, you know, whether, you know, how addicting food is, but I do know the closer that you have your relationship to some of these foods, the easier it is for them to come back in your life. You know, when you continually get a taste for them, you want to hit that taste up again. You're like, man, I could really go for that. That would be great. But the more that you get into them, or the more that you get away from them, and the more that you lean into your goals, and the more that it seems like the more perpetual motion that you get. It feels like you got like a speed boost, like you're a video game and you got a little power up, and you find yourself moving a little faster than normally. Like, shit, man, that kind of put me through a warp zone. I was just able to get right through that without a problem. And I think that a lot of times we're like right there on the cusp, but we don't know that, we don't realize that we're there. And it's really easy to get involved in environmental stuff. You know, somebody else in the household goes and reaches for something and you see what they have and then you're like, I'm without. You're like, I'm missing out. I want to participate in that as well. And there you are. But you don't have to not rummage through your pantry. I mean, first of all, people shouldn't have a pantry. There's really no reason to have a closet full of stuff that's not actually food. Like, let's just get that out there for now, right? Like, it doesn't make a sense. And to have a whole entire like closet full of it is fucking ludicrous. It doesn't make any sense at all. A refrigerator is good enough as it is. That has a lot of calories in it that you don't have to fight for as well, which the human body is designed to go and fight for calories. You have to fight to get your calories. You have to hunt to go and get your calories. Now we just pop to the fridge and get them. But you should be having, you should lean towards fresh foods more. When it does come to your pantry, since this is part of our life and we can't be too ridiculous with our recommendations, scale things back, man. Get things that are, there's packages of food that say 100 calories on them. So if you wanted to, and if you can control yourself, but most people can't, if you're a person that feels like you can control yourself and you can have one thing of cookies that's 200 calories, it's probably not a huge deal because it's probably a drop in the bucket to your overall 2,000 calories that are required for you to maintain your body weight or even to assist you in losing some body weight. It probably doesn't matter much when you ate well the whole day. You ate your steak, you ate your whatever your diet is. You followed your plan. And then after dinner, you wanted something sweet. Like, I can see people doing that without any problem at all. Or you can kind of go my route, which is I usually buy like keto treats, or I try to do something that's not going to have what I would consider like a negative impact on raising my glucose and spiking my insulin levels. So I try to go with a lower carb option. So I may have something like Chalk Zero. I mentioned the Jello earlier. I might have yogurt and Slingshot protein. Like, I try to do things that are just, I'm trying to do things that are just less offensive to my body and just not going to really cause any further harm. And I'm trying to do stuff that's not going to set me back at all. If you are a rule follower and you are someone that can be organized, you can very easily say, you know what, I'm going to allocate 500 calories every other day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or I'm going to allocate 500 calories just on the weekends because I want to enjoy a little extra shit with my wife or whatever on Saturday and Sunday every week. And you can do that. And you can have a perfectly normal and very healthy lifestyle and probably not really run into a lot of negative risk factors that we're talking about here today and talking about things like diabetes. You can certainly, I know people that do that and they look great. They're in great shape. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do if you're able to follow a rule, but there's a lot of stuff if you're not a rule follower and you've always struggled with food, you need to trace the food back to where it's actually coming from. What if you're obese? I think that there was probably some childhood trauma. It appears that that's the case with most people that are obese. I think 60% of our population is obese at the moment. And when I look around, I see 80% of the population being over fat. They're just not quite labeled obese yet because we keep upping the level of fatness that you're allowed to be obese. So I think, when you're examining how you are supposed to deal with these things, you need to examine yourself and you need to learn to know yourself. If you had a childhood trauma, I would encourage you to go and get help for that, because if you can clear some of that shit up, it's going to be so much easier to make progress with your nutrition. And I'm going to tell you why right now. You need to be a healthy person in order to lose weight and to not gain it back again. Anybody can lose weight. Anybody listening to this right now can lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks. Anybody. Eat chicken breasts. Eat 3 chicken breasts a day. 3 of the biggest chicken breasts that you can find. Eat 3 of them a day, every day, and maybe some vegetables. You'll lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks. You will be 10 pounds lighter in 2 weeks from now. Anyone can lose weight. Is that an effective plan for you to keep the weight off? No, it's not. You also lost the weight pretty quickly. And when things come really rapidly, oftentimes they're not sustainable. It's almost like, even though you may have earned it through doing that for 2 weeks, you kind of are shortcutting something and you're cutting back on calories so far that you better get ready for a rebound. And not only will you gain 10 pounds back, but you're going to gain 20 pounds back. You're probably going to gain back almost double. And the reason for that ricochet backwards like that is because you didn't really learn nutrition. You didn't develop a new skill set. You didn't build in all the habits that are necessary to continue down the path of success. You only tried to memorize something for a period of time. What happens in school when you memorize a test, or you memorize the questions that are on the test, right? Or you memorize the answers that you need, right? You memorize these answers, and 2 weeks later they're gone because you didn't really earn them, because you didn't really truly learn them. But if you went into the library and you actually studied and you dove into the history of, Abraham Lincoln or whatever this test is on, and you started to, read some of these things and you started to get fascinated by these things, you're like, oh shit, he did that. I wonder if that's true. And you go to look at another book and you look at another, and then now you actually have a better understanding of what it is you're talking about. When it comes to nutrition, you need at some point to develop a skill set. The principle of awareness is a massive part of being able to lose body weight and to continue and to keep it off. And if you're not aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it, you're going to kind of always be lost, and you're going to always have potential to regain that weight and then some.
Boom. That was fucking awesome.
I loved it.
Yeah, so we still have Zach in the room. Boar's still here.
What's up, Boar?
That was a great promo.
That really awesome. Was, yeah.
I got all fired up. I don't know what's going on over here. I'm 4 days into my fast over here, so I don't know. I'm losing my mind.
This whole time you've been levitating, by the way.
Did that make sense? Did any of that make sense?
I don't know.
Hello?
No, the entire thing made sense, and the best thing that you said was to why does somebody have a pantry? It's the stupidest thing ever, because it's not really food, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's
kind of a stupid word too.
Well, that's the center of a lot of this. You told me to throw out my couch because the couch is in the way. They sound ridiculous, but these are things that people really need to think about.
I shit my couch a couple years ago.
That's one way to get rid of it.
Do you remember that, Boar? I had that, I got really sick around Thanksgiving. You remember that?
I think you shit every couch you have.
That's probably true. I had to actually get rid of my couch because I shit my couch.
Hey, things happen when you get sick.
When you're experimenting with nutrition. Last night I got a nice surprise. I was in my bathroom. I'm brushing my teeth, and I just tried to let out a little bit of a fart, which I don't even know how I still have farts inside of me. And it was not a shart. It was just I didn't even really feel it. I wasn't even really paying attention because I was brushing my teeth. I'm doing something totally different, and I completely shit my pants.
Well,
it was
have you explained to everybody your new diet?
Just not eating any. Just keep making yourself have to shit all the time.
Yeah, that was your new diet. We didn't really come up with a name for it yet, but it's like a blowout diet, right? You eat all the stuff like chicory root and allulose and all the stuff.
You eat stuff that you can't actually digest. And
eat all the ingredients in every keto product.
We were saying it's different than anorexia, bulimia. Is it bulimia when you throw up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like bulimia, but it's out your ass.
It's new. It'll catch on.
Yes.
It just needs a catchy name, and it's gold.
We're working on it.
I thought it was the vegan diet, I think.
MCT oil and sugar alcohols, and you'll be right there with me, But I didn't know what to do with myself because I was still fully clothed, and I'm like, I don't know where to turn. I'm like, I'm gonna go into the bathroom and see, like, and I was like, I can't go into the bathroom.
Can't address the damage.
And I can't. I'm like, I can't. Well, first of all, I didn't know how much damage occurred, and it just blew out all over my underwear and my shorts, and like, I started feeling it trickling down. I'm like, my only option right here is to go into the shower with all my clothes on. So I just barely took my shirt off. I listened to the best advice I ever got from Andrew. I kept the knees kind of soft. I kept them bent because if I tried to, if I tried to run into the shower with flexed knees, I would have slipped, and B, might have shit my pants even more. So I turned the shower on, and I had to shower all this shit off, literally. And then I had to try to wash my shorts and my underwear in there, which I probably should have just thrown them away. But I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know what to do. And now they're sitting there in the shower, like drying. And Andy's going to be like, what happened? Like, why, why are these? Yeah. Now I got to explain to her, like, your husband that you've been married to for 20 years just totally shit himself.
Grown ass man.
I'm supposed to be, but I'm still having some elementary problems.
You ever wonder if that happens to women?
What's that, Bor?
You ever wonder if that's like stuff like that happens to women?
It's
like
not
must, right?
It's not supposed to.
I don't know.
It's not supposed to happen to anybody, but it must happen.
Well, women definitely have MCT oil blowouts, just like anybody else, I'm sure.
Did you finish brushing?
I never, I never did finish brushing. No. I mean, I brushed later on that night, but it was bad.
But since you're not eating anything, you don't have to brush anyways.
That was a surprise, though, is that I didn't even know I haven't shit in 3 days.
And then it just squirt. Okay.
Yeah. And something just squirted out. And I was like, I was kind of
a fast that you took shit like that.
Yeah, I know. And, I was kind of excited because I was like, this means I'm going to take a shit. And it never happened. I just shit my pants. And that was it. I guess I got it all out in one shot or something. I don't know what happened. I gotta talk to Joel Greene about this. He'll be able to dissect it. I can rewind.
One thing that really induces it is coffee and nicotine.
Well, I did have bulletproof coffee, and I know sometimes the MCT oil can get the better of you, but I don't usually have issues like that. But apparently,
in comparison to what's in your system right now, if it's 100% MCT oil, even if it's just a little bit, it's still 100%.
Right.
So that's
and I also have some electrolytes, which I've had electrolytes mess with me before. I've had some magnesium and sodium and stuff, and it's like
it could get weird.
Bam! That stuff might come flying out.
Run right down your leg.
Zach must have shit himself on all these quote unquote runs,
definitely.
Right? Oh yeah, right at like mile 98, trying to get to mile 100.
Don't they get like? Yeah, like you poop when you trot, like a runner's trot or something they call it, right?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a name for it specifically, but every runner's got a story for sure.
That's got to be awful. You're just like out in the middle of nowhere, and you're like, "Holy shit!" Literally.
Yeah, well, middle of nowhere is not too bad because no one's watching. Then it's when you're in the middle of the city where it becomes an issue.
Yeah, you're like, people are gonna judge me if I just go on the side of the road here and take a dump.
Especially if it's not tapered.
Those damn runners. When you see it that it's not dog poop.
Can't hide it.
Daniel, you have another question? Are you still around?
Yeah, man, I got questions for days. How many scoops of that shake mix did you have before you defecated?
How many who?
I know. I'm looking forward to the Oregon shake, protein shake.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
I'm assuming you're beta testing it, which is why you had this leakage.
Oh, he's thinking that's the reason for the poop.
No. I shit myself because of bulletproof coffee. Yeah.
If I could talk about the steak shake for just one second,
absolutely.
Obviously I'm biased, but it was one of the best things I've ever had. I had I made a shake, and I never have done this before. Made a protein shake with the chocolate, drank it, and then immediately made a protein shake with the vanilla, and immediately drank it. And I have to say the steak shake's going to be a staple of my carnivore diet.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. It looks like we're about 1 week away from receiving it, and then from that time period, it'd probably be about another week before we release it. So it should be ready like in March. Right around the first week of March, we should be able to launch that bitch.
Will it we mix Slingshot protein in with coffee and stuff? Is it going to mix about the same, or I guess we don't know until we?
Yeah, it does everything the same.
Okay.
I mean, mixing a whey protein type thing into a hot coffee is always kind of a difficult thing. It
curdles.
Yeah, it kind of curdles and doesn't work well. But in a cold coffee, absolutely, yeah, you'll be able to blend it right in there.
It was actually Tom Thornton that told me, he's like, hey, just let it chill. Literally, let it chill for a little bit. It can still be hot,
right?
And then you mix it with the coffee and the protein. It works out great.
Yeah, you let it cool for a second, or throw an ice cube in there, and you're good to go.
Yep.
Anyway, we're going to drop off here. Really appreciate everyone listening and participating and asking questions, and good to catch up with you, Zach. It's been a while.
Yeah, thanks for having me in here. This is the first Clubhouse thing I've done, so it's pretty cool to check it out.
Feels good to have popped your cherry.
It feels good.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. I appreciate it. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness never a strength. Catch you guys later.